I used to think composting was something only serious gardeners with acres of land could master. My pathetic attempts at backyard composting always resulted in smelly, slimy messes that attracted flies and never seemed to break down properly. Then I discovered this 3-layer system that completely changed everything. Within 6 months I went from buying expensive bagged soil amendments to producing more rich, dark compost than my garden could use. The best part? This method works in spaces as small as 4 square feet and requires almost no maintenance once you understand the simple science behind it. The secret to rapid, odor-free composting lies in creating distinct layers that work together like a perfectly orchestrated biological factory. Most composting failures happen because gardeners mix everything together randomly, creating anaerobic conditions that slow decomposition and produce terrible smells. The 3-layer system eliminates these problems by creating optimal conditions for different types of decomposer organisms at each level. Your bottom layer serves as the drainage and aeration foundation, preventing the waterlogged conditions that kill beneficial bacteria and create anaerobic decomposition. The middle layer provides the balanced carbon-to-nitrogen ratio that feeds microorganisms and generates the heat necessary for rapid breakdown. The top layer acts as insulation and moisture regulation, maintaining ideal conditions while protecting the active decomposition zone from temperature extremes and excess moisture. This layered approach mimics what happens naturally in forest floors, where fallen leaves create distinct zones of decomposition. By replicating this natural process in your backyard, you're essentially speeding up what nature does over years and condensing it into months. The key insight is that different materials decompose at different rates and serve different functions in the composting ecosystem. Your foundation layer determines whether your compost pile will succeed or fail, yet most gardeners pay little attention to this critical component. Start with materials that create air spaces and allow excess moisture to drain away from the active composting zone. Woody materials work best for this purpose: small branches, thick stems from perennial plants, or even bamboo stakes cut into 6-inch sections. The foundation layer should be 4 to 6 inches thick and cover the entire footprint of your planned compost area. Don't chop these materials too finely. You want pieces that maintain their structure and continue providing air spaces even as softer materials decompose above them. Avoid using treated lumber or branches from diseased trees, as these can introduce harmful chemicals or pathogens into your finished compost. Many gardeners overlook the importance of foundation maintenance, but this layer needs periodic refreshing as materials slowly break down. Every 6 months, gently fork through the bottom layer and add fresh woody material as needed. This simple maintenance step prevents the compaction that turns active compost piles into anaerobic, smelly disasters. Consider the placement of your foundation layer carefully. Choose a location with good drainage that won't become waterlogged during heavy rains. If your yard has drainage issues, create a slightly raised foundation using additional coarse materials, or consider building your compost system on a wooden pallet that elevates the entire structure above problem areas. The middle layer is where the real composting magic happens, and getting the chemistry right makes the difference between rapid decomposition and frustrating delays. This layer requires a precise balance of carbon-rich brown materials and nitrogen-rich green materials, typically in a ratio of about 30:1 by weight. However, rather than obsessing over exact measurements, focus on visual cues and the behavior of your compost pile. Your brown materials include dry leaves, shredded newspaper, cardboard, sawdust from untreated wood, and dried grass clippings. These materials provide energy for microorganisms and create air spaces within the pile. Fresh green materials include kitchen vegetable scraps, fresh grass clippings, coffee grounds, and fresh garden trimmings. These provide the protein nitrogen that microorganisms need to multiply and generate heat. The secret to managing this layer effectively lies in understanding moisture and particle size. Materials should feel like a wrung-out sponge moist, but not dripping wet. If your pile becomes too dry, decomposition slows dramatically. If it becomes too wet, beneficial bacteria die, and anaerobic bacteria take over, creating unpleasant odors and slimy conditions. Particle size dramatically affects decomposition speed. Smaller pieces break down faster because they provide more surface area for microorganisms to work on. However, materials that are too fine can compact and create anaerobic conditions. Aim for pieces no larger than 2 inches and no smaller than ½ an inch. A simple machete or pruning shears makes quick work of sizing materials appropriately. Temperature monitoring in the middle layer tells you everything about how well your system is working. A properly functioning compost pile should reach temperatures between 130 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit within the first week. You can check this with a long-stemmed compost thermometer or simply push your hand into the center of the pile. It should feel noticeably warm to hot. The top layer serves multiple critical functions that many composters completely ignore, leading to piles that dry out, overheat, or fail to maintain consistent conditions. This layer regulates moisture, moderates temperature swings, and provides a clean, attractive appearance that won't offend neighbors or attract unwanted pests. Straw makes an excellent top layer material because it insulates well while allowing air circulation. A 3 to 4 inch layer of straw maintains consistent moisture levels and prevents the surface from crusting over during dry periods. Shredded leaves work equally well and are often more readily available in suburban settings. Avoid using fresh grass clippings as a top layer, as they can form an impermeable mat that prevents air circulation. The top layer also serves as a pest deterrent when managed properly. Fruit flies and other unwanted insects are attracted to exposed food scraps, but a proper covering eliminates this problem entirely. When adding new kitchen scraps to your pile, always bury them in the middle layer and restore the top layer covering. This simple practice keeps your compost pile odor-free and pest-free. Moisture management through the top layer requires attention to seasonal changes. During hot, dry summer months, you might need to add extra covering material or water the pile occasionally. During wet seasons, pull back some of the top layer to prevent oversaturation. Learning to read your pile's moisture needs through visual cues and the behavior of decomposer organisms becomes intuitive with practice. Understanding the timeline of 3-layer composting helps you plan garden amendments and maintain consistent production throughout the growing season. Your first batch should be ready for use in 3 to 4 months under optimal conditions, but several factors influence this timeline. Temperature, moisture, particle size, and the carbon-to-nitrogen ratio all affect decomposition speed. The most productive approach involves creating multiple 3-layer systems in sequence rather than trying to maintain one large pile year-round. Start your first pile in early spring, begin a second pile in midsummer, and create a third pile in fall using abundant autumn leaves. This rotation provides you with finished compost when you need it most while ensuring consistent production. Turning your compost pile accelerates decomposition but isn't strictly necessary with the 3-layer system. If you choose to turn your pile, do so carefully to maintain the distinct layer structure. Move material from the outside of the pile to the center, ensuring that less decomposed materials get exposed to the active center zone where temperatures are highest. Signs that your compost is ready include a dramatic reduction in pile volume, an earthy smell with no trace of the original material's odors, and a dark, crumbly texture that feels like rich potting soil. Finished compost should have no recognizable pieces of the original materials except perhaps small woody stems that can be removed by screening or simply left in the finished product. Even with proper setup, 3-layer compost systems occasionally develop problems that require attention. Understanding these common issues and their solutions keeps your soil factory running smoothly year-round. The most frequent problem is pile collapse, where the distinct layers lose their structure and blend together, often creating anaerobic conditions. Pile collapse typically results from using materials that are too small or too wet, causing the structure to compact under its own weight. Prevention involves maintaining proper particle size and moisture levels, but if collapse occurs, the solution is to rebuild the pile with fresh, coarse materials in the foundation layer and drier materials throughout the middle layer. Pest problems usually indicate that food scraps aren't being buried deeply enough in the middle layer, or that the top layer has become, well, inadequate. Rodents are attracted to exposed food waste, while flies are a sign of anaerobic conditions or just not enough covering. Both of these problems honestly resolve pretty quickly when you restore proper layering and make sure all food scraps stay buried in that active middle zone. Slow decomposition often results from incorrect carbon-to-nitrogen ratios or insufficient moisture. Piles with too much carbon, like brown materials, break down slowly and never really generate much heat. Adding fresh nitrogen sources such as coffee grounds or fresh grass clippings usually solves this problem within a few days. On the other hand, piles with too much nitrogen get slimy and smelly, so you'll want to add more carbon materials to restore balance. Once you've mastered the basic three-layer system, scaling up production to meet larger garden needs becomes honestly pretty straightforward. Multiple smaller piles often work better than one massive pile because they're easier to manage and let you better time when your compost is ready. You might consider creating specialized piles for different purposes, a fast-acting pile for immediate garden needs, and a slower pile for materials that just take longer to break down. Advanced practitioners often create dedicated leaf mold piles using only autumn leaves, and these produce exceptional soil conditioner over 12 to 18 months. These piles require minimal maintenance and create finished compost with outstanding water retention and soil structure benefits. The key here is collecting large quantities of leaves in the fall and creating separate piles that can decompose undisturbed. Consider the integration of your composting system with other garden infrastructure. Locating compost piles near your vegetable gardens makes adding finished compost more convenient, while putting them near outdoor water sources really simplifies moisture management during dry spells. Some gardeners even create elaborate multi-bin systems that allow for continuous production and easy access to finished compost. The investment in proper three-layer composting infrastructure pays dividends for years to come. Quality materials and thoughtful placement create systems that require minimal maintenance while producing exceptional results. Your backyard soil factory becomes a permanent asset that improves your garden, reduces waste, and saves you money on expensive soil amendments. Ready to transform your garden waste into black gold? Start your own three-layer composting system this weekend and, hey, share your results with us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to Hydrohaven for more practical gardening solutions that actually work, and share this guide with fellow gardeners who are ready to stop buying expensive soil amendments and start producing their own superior compost at home.